without any further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Joe. Take it from here, Joe. Thank you.
Tagi, it was an honor to collaborate with you 8 years ago, maybe a little bit more, going on 10 years, honestly. Truly an honor. And now to be a part of Agile Munich, I almost can't believe it. It just so phenomenal. And for Agile Munich to be so strong and interesting that it's extended way past Munich, that there's an engaged community supporting agility in Munich. Over half the participants seem to be from Munich, but almost half are global, is how strong the community has grown. I'm floored. I'm humbled to be a part of this community. And I will do my very best today to answer every single question anyone has about Agile hardware to the extent I can. The way I'd like to begin is by sharing some information to set context and to say what I do know and what I don't. And then I have a lot of content, but I hope people's questions or comments will drive what we talk about for the majority of our time. So please unmute anytime to say, please tell me more about this, or may I ask this, which is actually similar to how Tagi and I worked when we first collaborated with about 8 years ago, when we started that part of our journey together. So please, anytime. I'll also be trying to keep an eye on the Zoom chat. So for those who prefer to type, that's also fine for a comment or a question, and I'll try to notice the best I can. But if you'll pardon me, I'll share a screen which will take up some of our viewer space, but I have some pictures I'd like you to see to help explain Agile in hardware. And the primary goal, to summarize all of this, is faster hardware. That's the point. Agility is wonderful for health, well-being, for customer collaboration, and I value all of those. The focus I'm going to take is speed, which I will say is also important, and that's the one I'm going to be focusing on. We can talk about all the other benefits of agility in hardware, software, if you want to, but my maybe more unique knowledge set is how to get hardware done in 3 hours, which is truly insane. Luckily, I've had a chance to do it in many companies now, and I have confidence in it, and I'd like to show you how that works. But we can talk about any of the Agile benefits should you like. The host has disabled participant screen sharing. May that be changed, or may I be made a co-host so I can share pictures, please?
Just a second, Joe.
Certainly. It takes a minute. Thank you, Tagi. Again, my honor and pleasure.
There you go.
Wonderful. And I just admitted someone because I was made co-host. All right, someone else, please take over admitting people or not. Wow, people continue to flood the session. More people are, it's popping up all the time now that I was co-host. Many people continue to join. Wow, thank you, everyone. Okay, I will move the chat box over so I can see, and I will change my view so I can see more people's faces to try to judge reaction. And I hope you see something that looks like a palm tree. Okay, I'm Joe Justice. I've been doing Agile hardware since 2006 when I created my own car company called Wikispeed. And Wikispeed never became so huge by my metric, but we did become famous. We set 4 world records, mostly around speed, fastest speed to road legal, homologated, certified for sale in the Europe and the US. We own that record still, fastest to do that. The most efficient car to achieve top safety records and have very low energy consumption, these types of records. The types of records you might associate with agility is what I came up with. And what I would like to open with is here's how that happened. I was incredibly lucky. I was a developer, a software developer at Microsoft, and I became a Scrum Master for Bill Gates. I worked directly with Bill Gates. And this is when Bill was creating the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for social good, for philanthropy, like water, sanitation, and hygiene, helping eradicate polio globally, maternal and newborn child health, these initiatives. That's where I was a Scrum Master after developing. And Bill started every meeting I was in with, how much of this can we do in parallel? Now, as someone with a developer background, that felt natural. Object-oriented architecture, how can we have massively parallel concurrent execution? But to hear it from Bill Gates made it feel even more validated. Depending on the day, Bill is the wealthiest person on the planet. So as far as open markets are concerned, Bill has been validated. It's hard to compete with Bill Gates. Very few people have at that level. And every meeting where I was Scrum Master with Bill, he began with, how much of this can we do in parallel? And what I learned from that is that an important goal is to take whatever our big goal is and cut it into as many parallel executable tracts as possible. And if we have enough teams, have a team or more than one team on each piece and execute them all at once. And that's the same way software chips execute for massively parallel concurrent architecture and execution. Now, what might be useful to all of us here at Agile Munich is Bill wasn't at this time solving software problems. I was working with Bill on eradicating polio. So these were social good initiatives that were being executed like software projects, like software threads. And there was hyper-threading, and Bill manages like level 1 and level 2 caching with hyper-threading and virtualization. That's how Bill manages a company. So I was immersed in that, and none of it felt weird or strange because I happen to have a developer background, which many of you do. So I hope it doesn't feel too foreign to all of us. From there, I was extremely lucky to then work with the leadership team at Amazon. And Jeff Bezos, at that time CEO of Amazon, still CEO of Blue Origin, was very strict about team size. Now, Bill wasn't so strict on team size when I worked with Bill Gates, but Jeff Bezos was. And Jeff Bezos' stance was teams should really be around 6 people. And the mathematics, some of us Agilists are very familiar with now, is what's called communication pathways. If we have 3 people on a team, there are 3 communication pathways for them to understand each other, to understand what each other truly is thinking, what each other knows, what each other has to offer. Whereas if we go to a team of 4 people, there aren't 4 communication pathways. There's, oh gosh, I think it's 6. There's more than 4, it scales up. And by the time you get to 10 people, it's untenable. And I saw this again later when I worked at Tesla. If you have a team bigger than 6 people, they have to elect a leader. In fact, they create a leader. They create command and control because it's too difficult to truly understand each other. And Jeff Bezos understood this. Jeff Bezos mandated at Amazon, if a team needed to explore and collaboratively solve a problem or understand what a problem is, they needed to be 6 people or less. Now at Tesla, I did work with teams as big as 50 people, but that's where we had a command and control directive. These machines are broken, figure out why and solve that. And so we deploy as a team. We were commanded. We could be a self-organized collaborative system with a common goal. But when the problem is, let's understand what the goal is, let's figure out what the goal is, we needed to be much smaller. And Bezos understood that intuitively. And I learned that as well from working with the leadership team at Amazon. Then I did go on to run the Agile program at Tesla. And I'll say here at Agile Munich, I actually created the Agile program at Tesla, and that we could dive more into in the Q&A if we want. But the more standard statement is I operated it. The less commonly said is I actually founded that program. And so why did that not exist before you joined, Joe, is a whole thread that we could choose to engage on or not. But what I learned working with Elon Musk and for Elon Musk and for that mission, really, it's an extremely mission-driven set of companies because there's high collaboration with SpaceX and Neuralink and the Boring Company, these companies that I have tremendous respect for myself. A common thread is make it exciting. Elon Musk, the CEO of 5 companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, the Boring Company, and the other one, OpenAI, really prioritizes making it so fast that everyone stays excited. And I think Elon's masterful at this. So it really is a prioritization of speed. And speed, yes, Elon does encourage overtime. He does. He does encourage long hours. He does encourage long work weeks. But that's not where the primary speed comes from, I believe. The primary speed comes from removing frustrations so that whatever time you put in at work, even if it's only 45 minutes, you accomplish a lot because the work environment has been optimized around you. And a common thread in what I'm about to say is there's great software to support these people in every position. There's a lot of really good machine learning, a lot of really good artificial intelligence that augments every job. And it makes it easier to be hyper productive. And I think that's important. So we have the idea from Bill Gates, take a problem we're solving and cut it into parallel executable chunks and execute them all at once. Then we have Jeff Bezos saying, of those chunks, try to have them with 6 people or less, which means you have cross-functional, hyper cross-functional trained people. And then you have Elon Musk saying, go so fast that it stays exciting, that you can't imagine working anywhere else. And I'd like to dive into that. I'd like to show you that. So I'll move to an overview. You might see on your screen, it might say Agile Hardware Developer. That's actually a course I teach just today that became certified by the Scrum Alliance as a certified Scrum developer certification, but not for software. It includes software, but it's actually primarily for hardware. And it's the first certified Scrum developer program, not for software only in the world. And I'm honored to have received that credential just today. Thank you, Scrum Alliance. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Sorry. Sorry. This is an aerial photograph that's then been labeled of Tesla's Fremont, California facility. We call it in Tesla the mothership. It's where design, analyze, build, test, and deploy all happen. So there's not a separate design center. There are separate design centers, but primarily design happens here. And there's not a separate test center. There are some test facilities, but primarily test happens here. This is a full stack facility, which is why we call it the mothership. It's the design and production center. And what I would like to do is give a very short tour of this facility and how Agile works in every part of this facility. I've divided it into 10 stops for us. And then open Agile Munich and beyond up to questions. And from there, we can dive into any part of the facility to better understand how Tesla is so fast. Now, again, agility is about quality of life. It's about customer responsiveness. It's about maximum value. It's about reduced frustration. But the aspect I want to focus on here is speed. How is it so crazy fast? And it truly is. Tesla will go from idea to in production, certified, homologated, tested, on sale in 3 hours. And I've worked with Daimler, and I've worked with Volkswagen, and I've worked with BMW, and I've worked with Ford, and I've worked with Toyota, and I've worked with Nissan. And in those companies, it's typically 2.5 to 7 years. So Tesla is very unusual in their speed. And that's what I want to show you. Yes, quality of life is really what it's about. Yes, creating a contribution that's environmentally sound and good for our children is really what it's about. But without speed, we'll lose to someone else. And I do think speed is unusual. And I want to try to tell that story. Where I want to start that story is how we launched teams at Tesla. Teams are launched like open space. If you've ever attended an open space conference with the law of 2 feet and the butterfly and the bumblebee, that is how teams launch at Tesla. And they're launched about every 3 hours. And they're launched based on machine learning. The IT at Tesla is really good. And many of you are in companies where it's as good or even better. So think of your best internal use software, and you're thinking about what I'm thinking about. So it's an app on your phone, and it tells you, here's an opportunity. Customers don't like this based on analytics, or the factory is bottlenecked here based on analytics, or suppliers are having trouble here based on analytics. So you have machine learning telling you where there's an opportunity. And that's like when you attend an open space conference and you see the possible agenda and people pitch agendas to you saying, please attend my session. But instead of it being pitched by a person, it's pitched by machine learning. So there is very good machine learning algorithms presenting possible goals. Then teams, exactly like open space, self-organize around those goals. So you're working with people that you potentially have never met all the time. So now it's about how to do a team launch fast and effectively in a way that you can respect and collaborate with each other easily. And that really is about bringing your best self to work and celebrating their best self so you can engage fast and easy. And for those of you who attended an open space conference, you've done this. It's the same. It sounds unheard of in a top-down command and control organization. But for those of us who have actually lived Agile, we've been to Agile Lean Europe or Agile Testing Days or any of the good Agile conferences, this is natural to us, actually. So you meet up with a group of people you may have never met, and you know what the goal is. And that's very important. This solves for what's called complex adaptive systems. Some of you know all about this, so I'll be very brief. Mathematically and physically, a complex adaptive system is the healthiest, most robust system we know of. It's what all life is as far as scientists are concerned. And part of the definition of a complex adaptive system is you have a common goal shared across a group of independent perspectives, a group of independent views. So that means in human terms, you have a team, you have more than one person with different perspectives, different views, but you have a common goal. Now you're incented to collaborate, help each other be your best self. And that's what an open space conference does. And that's what I'm trying to explain at Tesla does. So you have a goal. Let's say customers say the paint quality is low. The paint on the cars has defects. And a horrible thing, a customer actually declined taking their car. Their car was delivered to them, and the customer said, the paint is too bad. I don't want this car. That sets off red flags. It's red, actually, on everyone's phone, every employee, whether you're in Berlin, whether you're in Texas, whether you're in Shanghai, you get red icons on your phone. And if you're in one of the facilities at the time, in Berlin, in Shanghai, in Texas, in California, all the screens across the entire roof of the buildings, they turn red. A customer didn't accept their car because the paint had flaws. Okay, well, now you have your agenda item. The paint has flaws. So you self-organize around that. Some people are paint experts. Some people have never done paint. That's great. You want that breadth of perspective, and you join. You now have a mob. And now we use mob, just like Woody Zool has been telling the software development company for years now. That's exactly how it is. We rotate a timer, we have a driver and a navigator, and we say, how are we going to improve paint in the next 10 minutes? And some of us have never programmed a paint robot before. Some of us have never worked with BSFH to get a different chemical mix of paints before. Some of us have never done pigmented clear coat over a baked base coat. Some of us have never reprogrammed the robots that dip and clean the body in white, the metal before, but some of us have. So we become a mob and we aggressively rotate to share that knowledge. And in 45 minutes, we've all programmed a robot to spray paint. We've all talked to BSFH about paint chemical mix. We've all manually and then with robot help dunked these body and whites into the preparation mixtures. So you have rapid cross-functionalization, rapid T-shape. Truly in 45 minutes, you've done 6 essential skills for whatever this goal is. And it is that fast. And by the time 3 hours is gone, we've probably improved the situation such that the machine learning has told us how much the situation has improved versus the cost to improve it. Now, for those of you who are in leadership positions, this last part is, I think, very important. The machine learning tells us how much it cost us, how much it cost to employ everyone that collaborated on this. Did we buy something? How much did that cost? Did we engage a vendor? How much did that cost? Now that can all be autonomously audited. And in fact, it is. It's an IT project. That is an IT project. But once that IT project's in place, it's free. So you have data saying, here's how much it cost for you to collaborate for the last 3 hours, for example. And then here's how much the outcome improved. And when you're doing this in mass production, when you're working on main, as we call it in software, and we call it the same in hardware as well. When you're doing this in mass production, there's cars flowing by every minute. So it's easy to see the rate of improvement. If 1 out of every 1,000 cars had a paint problem before, and now 0 cars have that paint problem, you now know the value of your contribution. And this is the benefit of working on main, which software teams know, and now hardware teams know it too. So these teams work on main. It's not like you go off and do some new product development somewhere else. Then your feedback loop is too slow for what I'm talking about. You're always working on the factory floor, which is why I'm showing you an image of the factory floor. That's where everyone's working. As operating Agile at Tesla, I worked in the factory, on the factory. And to make this point more clear, Elon, at sometimes the richest person on planet Earth, and soon beyond. Elon's going to the moon and Elon's going to Mars. The richest person ever, depending on the day. Elon works the line. Elon drills metal. Elon lifts 20 kilograms. Elon programs robots. 80% of Elon's day, Elon's next to someone, in a team with someone, doing what I'm talking about. As a result of that, I never made a single presentation and I never saw a single presentation in Tesla, ever. You just walk up and you'd talk to Elon. You'd say, we really should buy 6 more KUKA robots and 6 more FANUC robots and put them here. And he'd say, I agree with you. I was working that position this morning and it was bottlenecked for these reasons. I think that's a good idea. Let's see if it works. That said, you wouldn't have to wait to ask Elon. Everyone has spend authority. It's truly an empowered collaborative system with 0 hierarchy. From the moment you're hired, actually 4 hours after you're hired, you can buy robots, you can buy land, you can start building a factory. And that sense of empowerment is brutally apparent and you become activated. It's very fun. I've actually never had as much fun at work, but my apologies, I went down a rabbit hole. Let me continue our tour. I'd like to take us to North Paint. This is where Elon Musk slept. There's a YouTube video where Elon Musk shows Elon's sleeping bag and says, this is where I sleep. And it's true. When Elon's not at Giga Berlin or not at Boca Chica, Texas for SpaceX, this is where Elon sleeps. Elon doesn't own a house anymore. Elon sold all of his homes. Elon sleeps in a sleeping bag on the floor, not even in an office, on the cement factory floor. And it's in North Paint. And that's where I would start my day. Operating Agile at Tesla, I'd go to the bottleneck. And the bottleneck is where Elon sleeps. And so that's where I would go. And I'd help create a backlog and see, is the machine learning accurate? Does it need to be updated so we have correct goals? And then I would join one of the self-organized teams to try to improve the situation, as would Elon. And that makes you radically cross-functional. In 30 days, you've worked in every position in the entire company as the bottleneck moves, as the situation improves. I'd like to take you here to the pilot line. The pilot line, well, here, let me toggle over. Do you see these shipping containers, these Connex boxes? They're on both sides, if you can see it. Those are the inputs and outputs of Agile lines. Design and production are the same. And I have recently worked with Volkswagen. I have recently worked with BMW. I have recently worked with Daimler and Nissan and Toyota. And this is very foreign. So I want to try to be as clear as I can. Across these pilot lines, I'll zoom out so you can see the building. This is a building. Now I'll zoom back in. Across this building are pilot lines. And what these pilot lines do is they take an operation, a traditional manufacturing operations, like install the heat pump. And it's their job to not only install the heat pump, but also improve the heat pump. They get to pick how they improve the heat pump. They're self-organizing. It's not like Elon walks up to you and says, I need you to make a more efficient heat pump. The people there know that a more efficient heat pump would be better if we know how. A lower cost heat pump would be better if we could. A safer heat pump in the event of an accident would be better if we could, etc. You know this. No one needs to tell you. It's a flat company. So whoever self-organized around that lean cell, that agile line, they know what to improve if they could. And they do R&D themselves. Now, this is very different than most companies. Most companies have an R&D waterfall that's 5 years long in an office somewhere else, with some aspects outsourced to different countries, which makes it optimally slow and everyone multitasks. Well, there's no time for that in Tesla. So the team that's working on the heat pump sits on the floor with laptops, and they draw new possible heat pumps in CAD as a group. And they use Mob, just like Woody Zool has been trying to tell us. And we rotate through and we make possible updates and we vote as a team on what might be worth doing. And then we call vendors and we prioritize vendors that can deliver in less than 24 hours. And some can't, and that's okay, but we try to work with fast vendors. And a lot of parts are made in-house because we have to for speed reasons. And then we make one of these new heat pumps while we are installing the current heat pump. The install team is the R&D team, is the maintenance team. It's full stack. We install them, and then we run tests. So you know if the current heat pump and the new heat pump are at parity. If the new heat pump, which you've made only one, is as good or better than the new one, you sell it. You actually ship it. I mean, that one that day gets sold. It goes out that day to someone. That means every single car is homologated, is tested as road legal. It's Agile, right? So for most of us Agilists, this is the big switch. I talked before for leadership, what is the big switch? For us Agilists, this is the big switch. Every single car is tested road legal, homologated. It has to be, because you don't have a 1 year new product introduction cycle. It's constant. It's Agile. So that means every single car goes through homologation testing. Actually, I'm going to skip all the way from step 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through body assembly. I'm going to go to bamboo line, which is frame 12. Here we go.
Jeff, sorry, Joe, may I interrupt you for a second? Some people
Certainly,
are saying they're seeing obviously the half of your screen. Is that by intention? Is that
yes.
What you're trying? Okay, perfect. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, important. If there were a technical problem, I'd want to know immediately, but in this case, it's intentional. Thank you, Tagi. Here you might see me in front of a Falcon 9 rocket. This is during a sprint review at SpaceX. Again, there's heavy exchange between Tesla and SpaceX, the Boring Company, Neuralink, OpenAI. But I'm going to zoom in here on a meme from Elon Musk. I'll let you read it because I actually think it's very funny. Dude, what if, wait, hold up a sec. What if the cars drove us? This is the bamboo line. This is what it actually looks like. Every single car, from the moment they're put together, puts themselves through every homologation test that's not destructive. Now, destructive tests like crash testing, you couldn't do to 100% of vehicles, or you couldn't sell them. 1 out of every N, which is usually around 1,000, does put themselves through crash testing. But 100% of vehicles puts themselves through every non-destructive test. And this is what is called factory mode. This is where autopilot came from. And for us Agilists, I actually think this is the most exciting point. We're used to test-driven development in software, where you write the test first and you write software to pass the test, and then we red, green, refactor. We're used to that. I mean, not all of our clients, not all of our teams do it, but we know it's good. And if we can do it, it has benefits. Well, the same is true in hardware, is what I would like to assert. And this is what Tesla does. They start with a test. It's all the road legal tests to homologate in the EU, in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Australia. The testing body, that's test-driven development. And the first goal of all of these teams is to automate that, just like software. How can the car put itself through these tests? And that's what we call factory mode. In SpaceX as well, it's automated tests to be legal to fly the rockets for FAA in the United States, and for the cars for NHTSA and IIHS. Now, this is not trivial. It's important. Once every car can autonomously put itself through every homologation test, every road legalization test, every certification test that's not destructive, now every car can be different. And that's what you want in agility. You want to be able to deploy new updates at any time. And the cars are split into modules, exactly like Bill Gates tried to teach me so many years ago. So you have many parallel execution work streams, and everyone is deploying an update approximately every 3 hours. So together you have massive change. Potentially every vehicle is completely unique. New adhesives, new metal shapes, new software, new electronics, truly unique. This is very different than Daimler, than BMW, than Toyota, than Nissan, than Ford, than GM, than Stellantis. These vehicles then can be fully unique, and each one is certified. Now, for some government regulation, there does need to be a human that checks off this vehicle is certified. So those people actually stand at the bamboo line and they enjoy a very good coffee and they check off that this car is homologated, this car is certified. And this is actually what it looks like here at the bamboo line. And here's what it looks like at SpaceX. I have an embedded video here of parallel sprint review of self-landing of some Falcon 9 rockets. And then if we were doing a course together and we had 2 days, I would then show all of us retrospectives in hardware to increase the speed of the next sprint. All of this I have packaged into what's called Agile Hardware Developer, which just today was recognized by the Scrum Alliance as a certified Scrum developer certification. And in 2 days, we could cover all the content. But for us here in 45 minutes at Agile Munich, I'm glad I got to show you a little bit of an overview. What I'd like to do now is ask everyone, and Tagi to take point, and Mentos to help us. Thank you so much, Mentos. It's awesome to work with you again too. To say, do you want to learn more about plastics? Do you want to learn more about estimation? Do you want to learn more about stamping, body assembly, what retrospective looks like, what the tent is, how do paint and coatings work? What does the maintenance model look like? How do teams self-organize? What's the business plan like? Any of those topics we can do for up to 45 minutes. And I will make a sale attempt. Please do join the Agile Hardware Developer course. I'll put the URL in the Zoom chat. It's ABI for Agile Business Institute -agile.com, abi-agile.com. We run these Agile Hardware Developer courses and Certified Scrum Master and Certified Scrum Product Owner courses and leadership workshops in every time zone. We do whole global. And I'm lucky enough, I'll be in Europe on CET in just 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and happy to even meet in person if everyone's vaccinated. So a pleasure and an honor. With that, I'll stop screen share for now, unless questions bring us back into the factory. And I'll start to try to read the chat, and I'll ask Mentos and Tagi to help the group drive the conversation here on. And again, it's an honor to be here with Agile Munich. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. Amazing. Thanks a lot. I think to make it a little bit more interactive, we're not asking the people who've got a question to just open up the mic and talk, but
already put the question in the chat.
Oh, sorry.
Coming back to the basics of Scrum. So the reason for a backlog, the reason to work focused and concentrated to get output. For me, there's a little contradiction in your description that when there's a problem in Paint, every employee on his app raised a red flag or something like this. That means, so okay, it's what's completely right to be always focused on the bottleneck in production. That maximum resource is focused on bottlenecks, that's fine. But really, when you do this in this consequence, that everybody looks, then the question is, you lose focus, you create tons of mental changeover waste. This is for me a contradiction.
Matthias, you understand, absolutely. Yes, I agree with you. So please remember, think back to an Agile conference you may have attended that was run via open space. Everyone doesn't join one session. They self-organize around sessions where they think they can be the most value. So there are thousands of Agile teams in Tesla and SpaceX at any given moment. They're not all on the same one. They self-organize. It's not like Elon needs to walk up and say, tap, 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 I need you to be working on Paint. That would be impractical, too slow, and honestly unfun. It'd be micromanagement. It is flat. So instead, there are many, sorry, it's not a perfect company. I wish it were. There are many red flags, not just one at any given time. So you choose.
So this is my message. When this is the process, or this is this indicator, it's flashing not the whole time, but
there are always many flashing. You're right. There are always many. They don't flash.
So this is just a contradiction. Just a contradiction to the principle to work focused.
Well, there's not a single thing. Now this is going to be harder for me to talk to, honestly, either a Japanese audience or a Germanic audience. Truly, this part's harder. So I'll ask for Japanese and German mindsets to really try to think about something that is unusual, because for these cultural contexts, this is very unusual. There is not a single thing that was thought to be important 1 year ago or even 30 days ago that is important now in these companies. There isn't one. So any type of planning horizon that's more than 24 hours long is irrelevant in Tesla or SpaceX. And this is really difficult for my Japanese clients and my German clients, but it's completely true. And it's, I think, what Herbert Diess is wrestling with right now for Volkswagen Group. Is they're saying, well, but how do we plan 5 years in advance for the next Porsche Taycan? You can't. Physics doesn't actually work that way. Is what I will assert. So it truly is. You start your shift, and it is shift work. I operated a knowledge work position, Agile at Tesla, and it's run on a shift. All of it is. You start your shift, and you look at what's the Agile backlog of topics? Where can I add the most value? And you self-organize around it. Thank you so much, Matthias. Brilliant comment.
Yeah.
So it's true. There is no long-running product backlog. Well, I mean, there is, but it's superseded by emergent learning. Now, there is a backlog that's about 12 hours long. Okay. And at a large business goal, there's a backlog that lasts for decades. And that's what's called the master plan. But that's at a huge level. It's let's make an expensive electric vehicle and use the profit from that to make a less expensive electric vehicle. and use the profit from that to make a mass market, highly affordable electric vehicle. Do this by creating a sustainable, renewable energy infrastructure. That's what's called the master plan. That did not change. But where are chips coming from, for example, to fire the airbags, that changes every day, especially now in supply chain challenges, right? So that backlog is fully emergent. But yes, there is an overall strategy called the master plan, but it's very broad and there's a lot of room for self-organization under it.
So just to make it clear, when you describe it, as more people work on problem solving in a firefight mode, and
Yes.
this switching between tasks very fast will
About
reduce the mental power for results. This is losing focus.
Okay, so context switching is something I'm very passionate about. So a point I'd like to try to clarify is people switch teams when they're done. What's really cool is that this is hard to even imagine for most of us. Like, we knew it when we were kids, but most of us have been in traditional schooling and then traditional companies for years or decades. It's hard to even imagine. But people switch once they finish something, once it goes to done. And then the context switching loss penalty is actually very low. What's crazy about that is people reach done in about 3 hours. That's what's absurd. I mean, that would be a 2.5-year project at Toyota. It would be. I worked in Toyota. It was. At Nissan, same. In Daimler, same. These are 2.5-year projects. Yes, they're finishing in 3 hours. But regardless, the moral of the story is wait till you're done, and then you have an opportunity to renew with the same team or self-organize. And that reduces the context switching loss penalty.
Let's move on to Kai's question.
Yes, is that for me? Hey guys, so yeah, I was wondering about the outcomes. And is there a way that is used to define outcomes beyond just doing tasks?
So Kai, I'll try, and then please let me know if I approached what you wanted where to take the conversation. The analytics are really good. So for those of you who are members of Zing or LinkedIn, they have a virtual twin of almost 8 billion people on planet Earth. Who are your friends? Where did you work? What did you do there? What type of phone do you have? They have a digital twin of humans. So does Twitter, so does Facebook, right? That's how these social media services work. Well, Tesla does the same for each car they've made. And they have 2 million cars on the road now. And they have a digital twin of each car. And it tracks everything. What music is played? Was it fast music? Was it slow music? Were they driving fast? Were they driving slow? Were they parked? Did they give it to a valet? Were they at work? Were they at home? Did they have other people in the car? Was it the usual driver? Was their friend driving? Was their spouse driving? All of these things, right? And from those analytics, you can create personas and make some educated guesses as to what people find valuable and what is frustrating. And those then drive the backlog. Now, this is not perfect. I actually wish, as operating Agile at Tesla, I wish there was more direct customer presence in the sprint reviews. I would have liked that, but it's analytics driven primarily. There's some customer presence, but it's primarily analytics driven. That said, the analytics are so good. There's a lot you can learn directly from the analytics. And what that does, because cars are being sold every minute, and again, because you're making changes on main, it's not like you're doing a Kaizen initiative that will update the way cars are made a year from now. You're making a change that's going to affect the next car. As absurd as that sounds, that's exactly how it works. And you can do that because 100% of cars test themselves. So the change you're making, you're going to have customer feedback potentially 24 hours from now. So that feedback loop makes it possible to have this level of agility. And I will propose that a feedback loop from design to customer feedback of less than a month is really the goal, because you can still remember as a human. It fits our human timeline. And that's, I think, where most hardware companies currently have opportunity. Most hardware companies, that feedback loop is more than 2 years long, between 2.5 and 11 years, depending on the company. So it's hard to keep in mind the feedback loop, but if you prioritize a fast feedback loop, suddenly agility makes sense. Kai, did I reach your comments at all, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah,
where
it's
you
very
are?
interesting. And I actually have, can I follow up a little bit? So,
course.
both, so let's say they're designing a new car, which,
Yeah.
they are from
Which
time
they
to time.
are, yes, which they are, yes.
So then, are there any goals, like it should do 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 1.9 seconds, or wherever they are? Is that, I mean, that doesn't come from the digital twin, right? That comes from somebody's vision of these things. So is there such a thing or not?
Okay, well,
and then while I have you, so because you can maybe mix this into one answer, but I'm super excited also to hear more about how the digital twins for the individual cars and other systems are both technically and everything about it. Actually, I'm super excited about the digital twin technology that is existing.
Oh, Kai, I love it. You and me both. We're excited about some of the same things. Many product decisions are driven by simulations of physics, like pretty basic ones, honestly. Like if you played, I don't know, years back, Quake 3 or Unreal, or I mean, this is old stuff. The physics engines are already actually not that bad. Like that's kind of what's running the product planning at Tesla and SpaceX, like just basic physics. And it's according to basic physics, what's possible. And it's pretty general, right? I mean, these are not high compute simulations. Really, like honestly, it is the Unreal Engine. Like it's not anything that
like
nuts.
When Elon says, going back to first principles, kind of that's
what it is. Yeah. And not even super detailed first principles, like generalistic freshman or first year physics degree first principles is where this is coming from. So you have these, and really it's run like a video game. You have these video games, these digital twins, these questions luckily are connected. These digital twins saying, well, what's physically possible, generally, basically, and it tells you a battery energy density like this is physically possible. We don't know how to do it yet, but it's possible. A 0 to 60 with tires with this adhesion, a 0 to 100 kilometers with tires with this adhesion, with current tire adhesion is possible to do just under 2 seconds. That's physically possible. Well, that's your goal. So there's no product planning meetings. I think a lot of companies go really wrong. My opinion, so now we've we've branched from what Tesla does to what Agile is to what Joe thinks. What Joe thinks is a lot of companies go really wrong when they create a management team to go out and decide what the goals are. Because now the rank and file people, the people who are doing the majority of the work, aren't involved. And you've created a caste system, and now you've created a hierarchy and a want to reach that level. I think it creates a lot of emotional problems. And Elon is not perfect, but Elon addresses this problem by joining the line. 80% of Elon's time, 80 hours a week, Elon is on the manufacturing line, drilling metal. The other 20% of the time, Elon is not in a boardroom. There is no boardroom. Elon's on a laptop sitting on the concrete floor doing CAD. And Elon is the richest person in the world, depending on the day. So if you're on the line, or if you're sitting on the floor doing CAD, it feels correct. There is no management team that went off and made decisions. You basically have a video game saying it is physically possible with current tire adhesion to go 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in less than 2 seconds. Okay, we don't know how, but it's physically possible. That's your product goal, and that is the kind of thing that's on your phone.
The issue with that is, of course, the cost might be way higher than the interest, right? So you need like a cheaper car that doesn't do it in 2 seconds. Otherwise, your price. If all the qualities are up at the physical border of possibility.
At Joe Justice, and I will attempt to respond to anything anyone tweets to me. I have a near perfect response history. So if we don't reach something in the time box we have, please tweet to me if you tweet, or Zing or Facebook or LinkedIn, and I will attempt to reply. And maybe we can have a good conversation that continues. Maybe we can make a community.
Martin?
I have a short question, then not to make your wife unhappy when you tweet all the time in your honeymoon. So I'm just interested in how is this going when you have a repair with repair parts, when every car is different and you have different pumps or whatever in the car? How is this working?
You're totally right. The repair model is completely different. So please allow me to zoom in here on maintenance. And I don't mean to just sell the course. It is my business. Please join the course. It's a great course. Please help me run my business. But I will say we'll have more time in the course. But let me show you. How can we maintain products when every single car can be different? How do we train maintenance technicians when there may be thousands of versions? The maintenance model is also very different for Agile hardware. I'll show you in the class how Tesla and SpaceX do it, but I want to say the technicians are trained on the interface. The heat pump has hundreds of versions. The technicians aren't trained on each version of the heat pump. They're trained on how to pull out any heat pump because they connect the same way, and then they plug in whatever the most recent one is. Now, more about the finance model of that and how that avoids warehousing is in the course, but I will zoom in here. For those of you who'd like to read it, here is a slightly more detailed description. And with that, thank you so much. I'll try to take the next question so we can get one more. Thank you.
Martin, are you still there?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm still there.
thank you.
Oh, hello, little Martin. Oh, please go ahead.
My question, I know the screen's frozen out. So my question would be, you say, what is management doing? It's a flat hierarchy, but if you look at job descriptions, Tesla, for example, for Berlin is looking for shift managers, for maintenance managers, for department manager. I have a friend who actually was interviewed for plant director. So I was wondering, what is management doing?
Yeah. Okay. Now, there is almost no management. It is nearly 100% flat. So how does this work? There's two maybe useful answers. One, for legal compliance, positions the government expects all exist. But what actually happened in my experience is people rotate through that position by the hour even. But there is a health and safety officer that's legally helpful. There is a plant manager that is legally helpful. But who is playing plant manager, who is playing health and safety officer is Agile. There is someone in that role at any given minute. So you have minutes tracking at any given second who was plant manager. But actually who is in that role is almost irrelevant, actually. So that's one. So having these roles is useful so that government organizations understand you for legal compliance. That's one. But I'll say it's Agile. Someone needs to be there, and they need to be fully educated and aware and capable. But of all the people that are who are educated and aware and capable are playing that role, it actually doesn't matter as long as they're educated and capable and fully aware. Then the second part is about hiring. I think that has as much to do with marketing as anything else. The position you take when you actually join the company is typically a general role that says you're going to do anything. But for hiring purposes and skills search, what the external market understands in terms of job position titles is used. And then when what you actually do in the company is agile. You self-organize. It'd be like if I attended an Agile conference. One of my absolute favorites is Agile Lean Europe. I've almost never had as much fun while learning so much. Also, Agile Testing Days was amazing. So say I've joined a conference. I am chair of the Agile Business Institute. I have these credentials, I have these titles, and I carry those with me into the conference when I sign up. But when I join, what session I attend is fully Agile. I'm just Joe, and I go to where I can add value or where I can learn. And I think Tesla is like that in terms of recruiting. They'll use commonly understood titles to recruit. And then once you join, you do whatever's most important for the company.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joe. I'm afraid as much as we're all excited to continue having that nice conversation with Joe, but the official time is over. I don't know if Joe, you have time, and others that you want to stay on, more than welcome, but I want to officially close it here. For those of you who want to leave, thanks for joining. It's been great. About 110 of you. I saw someone from Peru. Amazing. Such a wonder. Thanks a lot for joining. Joe, I can't thank enough. Thanks a lot. It's been very insightful, engrossing to have that conversation with you, especially in this special period of time in your life, to spend your time with us. We really appreciate that. Hoping to have you back sometime soon. And all the rest of you, thanks for joining. Back to you, Joe, if you want to have a closing remarks.
I will rejoin my honeymoon. I love this stuff though, and oh my goodness, can we please become social media friends? If you do that, if you Zing, would you please contact me on Zing? If you LinkedIn, if you Facebook, or if you Twitter, I love this stuff. I'd like to be social media friends, and I aspire to be invited back to Agile Munich. So please do. Any question that we didn't reach that was in the chat, I will request the organizers of Agile Munich save and start the next session with those, and or put those on Zing or put those on Facebook or Twitter. My preference is Twitter, but wherever you like, and I'll try to engage there. And let's try to make an Agile hardware community around these topics and these questions, because it is, I think, still very new. It's like where Agile software was 20 years ago. There are a few companies that are really far, I think, ahead, and a lot of companies that are intrigued, but just starting. So we get to be that community. And thank you so much for joining me on this wild ride. And it's in Germany now. It's in Berlin now. Whether we love it or we don't love it, it's there. And it's only going to grow. So let's enjoy it growing. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tagi.